So, potatoes have always been something of a challenging crop for me here in the Sacramento Valley. This is due, of course, to the fact that potato plants are both tremendously frost sensitive and also very sensitive to high heat, of which we have no shortage here in the Sacramento Valley. Given that potatoes take a while to develop tubers of sufficient size, and we have a very short window of time in the spring and the fall in which we have no danger of extreme heat and no danger of frost, it can be really hard to time the planting of a potato crop so that you actually get something back out of it. Over the last couple of years, I've been experimenting with planting well-chitted seed potatoes at different times of year to see exactly when you can plant them so as to get the best return on investment, so to speak. Now, last year I planted my fall potato crop around October 1st, and they did great for almost 2 months until all the plants were killed by frost around Thanksgiving. So this year I did an experiment and I decided to start some fall potatoes about a month earlier, in early September. And well, this video is about the results of that experiment. I had saved some of the potatoes that I harvested in April to use specifically as seed potatoes, and in late August I opened them up to see how they were doing, and well, things were mixed. I had packed them in sand here and kept them in my office, at a room temperature over the summer of, temperature in the 70s and 80s really. And some of them made it, and others unfortunately rotted out in the sand. And I will tell you, the smell of rotten potatoes is definitely up there as one of the worst smells in the world. Probably, if I was going to make a stink bomb, it would be spoiled eggs and rotten potatoes. Those are two garden stenches that we're very familiar with, and it's just rough. So some of these had to be thrown right out, but I got a good a handful that could be planted. The one in this square tin here, those fared a lot better than the ones in the coffee can. Over the summer, these potatoes sprouted some nice vigorous chits, and all I had to do next was get them exposed to light to harden them off a little bit. I did this by placing the potato sprout side up in some egg cartons and leaving them exposed to natural light for about 2 weeks. I supplemented my homegrown seed potatoes with a bag of organic red potatoes from the grocery store. They do have to be organic if you go this route because they won't be sprayed with growth inhibitors. As a precaution, I gave the store-bought potatoes a quick soak in a light hydrogen peroxide solution, and this is just in case there are any harmful fungus or bacteria hitchhiking on these tubers. I have heard people warn against using grocery store potatoes as seed potatoes for this reason, but a scouring of the internet, I wasn't able to find even any anecdotes of people experiencing this problem. It doesn't mean it can't happen or that it's impossible or that it's never happened. I just wasn't able to find any documented cases of it. And here the potatoes are drying after about a 10-minute soak in the peroxide solution. If anybody's interested, I have an earlier video that goes into a little more depth in starting seed potatoes, and I'm going to link it up top here. And on September 8th, I planted out my seed potatoes. I planted them fairly densely, one potato every 6 to 8 inches, expecting that I'm not going to have enough time to get big potatoes. So I really packed them in there trying to, go for a lot of smaller creamer type potatoes. Here are the red potatoes. And both the Yukon Gold and most varieties of red potato are known for yielding very quickly, in some cases as little as 70 days. And again, my adjusted expectations are that I'm not going to get any huge football-sized potatoes out of anything, that I'm going to mostly, like I said, get the little golf ball or grape-sized boiler potatoes that, while not huge, they're delicious and preparation is really easy. And there's a reason why creamer potatoes are so expensive at the grocery store. Aided by a heavy dose of granular organic fertilizer, the plants grew vigorously over the next 2 months, in spite of the fact that we had extreme heat that lasted well into October this year. Then on November 19th, about 6 weeks after our last triple-digit day, we got our first frost. This was a patchy frost, and while it did do some damage to the leaves, it was not enough to kill off the plants entirely. So at this point, what I decided was that I was going to actually harvest one bed for Thanksgiving. I always like to have a little something that I grew at the Thanksgiving table and let the other two beds ride. Plus, honestly, curiosity was getting the better of me, and I wanted to see exactly how big Yukon Gold potatoes would be after only 70 or so days in the ground. And here's an up close of what frost damage looks like. A lot of tissue necrosis, for lack of a better term, and just wilted, damaged leaves. Not enough to kill off the plants entirely yet, though. All right, time to harvest bed number 1. You'll notice that I'm digging through with my hands as opposed to with any kind of gardening tool. That's because whenever I use a tool, I always split and damage so many potatoes that I just kind of bite the bullet now and dig like a dog. And honestly, what kind of gardener would I be if I was afraid of getting some dirt under my nails? As I go, my prediction is turning out to be pretty much spot on, that most potatoes are in the golf ball size range, which is exactly what I was shooting for, what I was expecting. But so far, I'm pleasantly surprised by the volume. Yeah, look at that. These are beautiful looking potatoes. Again, it's a mix of Yukon Golds and some random red variety that had its origins on the grocery store shelf. Let's get a weight on these. All right, just about 9 pounds when you subtract the weight of the basket they're in. And given that I only planted 3 pounds of seed potatoes in this bed, that's a pretty good ROI. And while I had planned on letting the other 2 beds go a little longer, a couple of days later we were hit by a more extensive frost, and most of the leaves actually froze solid all the way through. I don't think these are going to make a recovery. Unfortunately, the second round of potatoes that I had planted out around November 1st had just started to poke through the surface when they were hit by that frost as well. Hopefully there's enough living tissue below the surface that these guys will make a recovery before spring, and I can still get something of a harvest out of these when all is said and done. So on Thanksgiving Day, when the turkey was on the smoker and I was looking for a little project, I decided to harvest the remaining 2 frost-damaged beds of potatoes. Now, some people might be wondering why I don't rig up frost covers for my fall potatoes. And there's a couple of reasons. One is cost. Even though it wouldn't be a tremendous expense to, get some PVC pipe and some polyurethane sheeting, I just, at this point, I'm so over budget on garden stuff for the year that I just don't want to spend anything more at all. But the bigger reason is I just don't like the hassle of covering and uncovering plants every night and day. I had a really busy, kind of breakneck speed summer garden season, and I kind of need a break from, too many garden chores. So I planted these out with the expectation that frost was going to kill them sometime in late November, and that I was going to get mostly boiler potatoes. I set that as my goal so that I could do minimal work. I'm going to skip ahead to after the harvest because honestly I forgot to use the time-lapse setting on my new camera. And I'm not going to make everybody watch 30 minutes of me leisurely digging through a garden bed for potatoes. So let's skip ahead a little bit here. Honestly, not too shabby for 75 to 80 days in the ground. This is 10 pounds total, and the size of these surprised me quite a bit. Some of them are a full handful for me. Unfortunately, some of these did come cracked, I'm guessing due to the recent heavy rains, but these just went right into the meal to Thanksgiving dinner that night. And on to the final bed, which consisted of all grocery store purchased red potatoes. And this bed actually impressed me the most. As I went along, I noticed not only was the volume there, but also many, if not most, of the potatoes I harvested were full baseball sized, which often that's about as big as you get red potatoes. Same for Yukon Gold potatoes. Mostly, they're baseball sized or smaller. They're not really huge potatoes like russets. And here are the beautiful, vibrant red potatoes I harvested from bed 3, and this was 12 pounds total, and I believe that was a 5-pound bag that I initially planted in this bed. Again, I'm really impressed with the size of some of these, after having been in the ground only a very short period of time. And here is the harvest from beds 2 and 3 together. So factoring in the amount that I got from bed number 1, it brings the total harvest weight to 31 pounds, which is pretty impressive in my mind because I planted only 9 pounds of sweet potatoes between all 3 beds. So 9 pounds in, 31 pounds out. I'm pretty happy with that for, a 75-ish day harvest. And here's what made all that time and work worthwhile. A batch of nice, fresh, crispy roast potatoes, hot out of the oven and ready for the Thanksgiving table. All right, that'll about do it for me today. As always, until next time, let's hope it all doesn't die.